Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Daniel Butterworth, Assistant Director for Graduate Admissions here at the Lally School at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I'm joined today by one of Lally's admissions ambassadors, Anna Koenig, who was an admissions ambassador from fall 2020 through now and is currently an ambassador. We're going to talk about what our ambassador program is and does, and what opportunities it can provide for you as a Lally student. This is one of the few paid opportunities that's available through the Lally School. And so we hope that this presentation and the application and information we sent out via email will encourage you to apply. We'd love for you to work with us. And yeah, so thanks for joining us. And without any more exposition from myself, Anna, I will let you take it away and share your insights from this past year.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Just want to start by saying everyone can hear me okay and can see the screen good. Awesome. If at any point you have questions throughout the presentation, obviously feel free to turn on your mic, but there will be time at the very end for a little Q&A. So yeah, I'm just going to get started. So just to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today, I'm just going to go into a quick overview of what the ambassador program is. I'm sure you received a bunch of informational sheets about it. So it'll be brief in that. Then I'm going to dive more into the types of tasks we worked on, both individually, maybe a little bit collaborative as a group, and then follow up Q&A I talked about. Cool. So just briefing. So our program is mainly created so that current students can help provide some sort of insight into an authentic representation for prospective students. This is so we can give a more great picture about what the graduate student experience is like, both at RPI and more specifically at Lally. While at the program, obviously, you've been introduced to our Assistant Director of Admissions, but our team works both under Dan and our Director of Admissions, Charlie Inchicom. Moving on to some of the specific tasks we've got to work on this past year. One of the main things we got to do, obviously, with being an online environment and everyone's remote from different areas, is a bunch of webinars. So this kind of was a wide-ranging task that all of us got to participate in. We all had different specific webinars we got to present on. For instance, me being from RPI, I did my undergrad and then stayed for my MBA. So I was a part of the co-term program at RPI and Lally. I got to present on that webinar. Kind of helping out current undergrads see the value in adding that extra year and, having their master's program here. Some of the other webinars we got to present on were some things called Enjoy Troy, which we're highlighting many of the off-campus activities, both in Troy and in the capital region, because we have a lot of those. Then we also talked about more specifics of when you get to Troy, kind of how you can navigate the different options in housing and transportation. And then finally, a lot of my colleagues and team members got to present on course-specific webinars, kind of highlighting some of the classes you may be taking within that specific program, as well as maybe a little bit more insights into what they've learned over the course of being a part of these programs, maybe things with different professors or things you definitely should look out for while being a part of any of one of our MBA or specialty masters. Cool. I'm going to go into social media because this was a very big task that I didn't get to spearhead, but one of my team members, Monique, got to spearhead. So our social media is very active and it requires a lot more of that hands-on and creative almost outlets. First and foremost is our style guide, with obviously our primary colors being red, white, and black at RPI. in terms of content, Monique did really well with having a really nice schedule and posting based on that schedule in terms of anything from like just recurring events that were popping up, making sure people were informed, to just, you know, fun posts like just a specialty day that you want to keep having a recurring type of post like that could really help with the engagement with your audience. Moreover, we did a lot of like series and informative types of posting, which I can get into in the next slide. So the types of series that we went into were like Meet the Ambassadors, which occurred right when we first joined. We all had our headshots taken. We wrote a little bio, and Monique then posted on social media to kind of introduce all of us to all of our audience on social media. Moving on, we kind of did talk a little bit more about like some spotlights between specific graduate programs as well as professors within those programs. So at the bottom here, you can see there is an example from one of our teachers in our quantitative finance and risk and analytics program, Brian Clark. I had the pleasure of talking to him actually to help with my paths that I will also get into in the next few slides. But this is kind of just examples for what it looks like on our social media. And you'll definitely, if you have the chance to take over this specific task, will have a lot of content and aids from what Monique had done. Moving on to individual projects. Obviously, we got to be very wide ranging with this too, and specific. So a lot of what we got to do was create and develop the webinars that I just kind of explained before, finding out what is more important and what we thought that the graduate students really should be hearing. Was a lot of fun. I didn't have the chance to do this, but we do have a WeChat that's very active. So especially with our student body being a large percentage of international students, this is especially important for like facilitation and regular posting on those pages, making sure that that percentage of our student body isn't neglected. Moving on to the specific task that I worked on, I helped create and develop the virtual tour of campus. This is still in the works to try and help students from all over the world who won't have the opportunity to come to campus actually see what it's like for themselves, get a little bit of insight into, I don't know, like walking on the streets of campus, what's inside our different buildings, a little bit hearing it more from a current graduate student's perspective. So things that I worked on were like creating and organizing scripts, shot lists, just general video series structure. I also then facilitated a lot of interviews with faculty, professors, students, all of this to be used for later videos and content. And then I also worked a little bit on editing and like making like timestamps on specific videos to be used later for our social media. This is just based on my personal skill set of what I already had going into the program. However, a lot of this I would say is pretty like unique towards my project, and you would definitely have the opportunity to hone your skills and build upon that in the different projects you'll be able to do with our program. Cool. And with that, definitely if there are any questions, I'd love to hear, but I do appreciate you being with me this morning.
Thanks, Anna. So if you don't mind, I'll ask a couple of questions for the
Yeah.
and then we can shut this off. People want to turn on their mics and cameras. What are some of the skills that you feel like you kind of got to develop or learn about through this program, through participating?
Absolutely. Definitely one of the main skills you learn both within this program and just RPI and Lally in general, I would say, is time management. It's something I'm still working on completely. Like I'm nowhere near like perfect at that. But stuff like that, when you have so many different things that like have deadlines, you have to communicate with a lot of people and everything, you definitely learn to get more organized. And on top of those skills, I guess it's something that you have to learn to work on better, because it's something in the real world that you're gonna have to master. So I definitely appreciated this program to giving me the opportunity to practice that more.
And would you share a little bit about like the weekly schedule?
Yeah.
Just what's
so yeah, definitely in the beginning, we started meeting regularly with our general staff. So that included 4 admissions ambassadors, as well as I had mentioned previously, Dan, who's our assistant director of admissions, and Charlie and Chacon, who's our director. So the 6 of us would typically meet earlier in the week as just like a nice face-to-face. This also was very helpful during like obviously our online format, to have a regular meeting, being able to see everybody and just check in to make sure everyone is doing all right. On top of that, you would also have a individual one-on-one meeting with Dan and Charlie Ann to go over any specifics, questions you may have, any specific projects, things you might want to work on. And then within that, the rest of the week typically would be made up of doing your individual tasks, whether it be for, like I mentioned previously, Monique's posting. She would have like a general calendar of like when things with events and things needed to be posted on certain days. And she would work on that throughout the week. For me, a lot of what I do, I would schedule interviews throughout the later ends of the week. Especially during like the school year when everyone is busy, that definitely became much harder to organize and like navigate, I would say. But I'm very pleased with the fact that both Charlie Ann and Dan gave me that much responsibility to try and navigate or manage this program.
You definitely drew the straw for a very large and complicated project. Yeah, so, and you know, you mentioned this, and I think it's important to emphasize. I think, you know, at the beginning of the year when everyone was starting, we worked really hard to try to figure out what people's skill sets were, what their interests were, and then match up tasks in a way that kind of capitalized on that, or helped people grow in that area. So you know, a lot of the early work will be, you know, in that vein. We'll, you know, try to get organized in a way that suits the team best. But
yeah, kind of building off of that, I would say our admissions team, the ambassadors, did meet several occasions to try and delegate our tasks together, because that's another thing, is like, just because you're spearheading a task does not by any means mean you'll be the only person working on that. So I had a lot of great time trying to help us organize together meetings where we'll be able to be like, okay, so Monique, Claire, Coco, we're all working on different things, but would any of you guys be willing to interview this group? Would you guys be able to go take pictures for this post on social media? You know, like trying to help relieve some of the workload for other people, because, you know, we're a team. It's not, especially if we had a lighter week in assignments or even classes, like, because obviously you're doing this during the school year. It made for a lot like help and a better, I would say, group, like by helping each other and building off of each other's strong suits.
Yeah, you all were also here during the weirdest year ever.
Yeah.
So all of our work was virtual, all of our meetings were virtual. And actually, Anna and I have still never met each other in person, and I only met other ambassadors at the very end of the year when things were kind of letting up as far as pandemic. But one thing that Anna and her colleagues didn't really get to experience, that we're hoping if things improve, maybe our next cohort of ambassadors will, is doing some in-person outward-facing presentations or work. So we do a lot of on-campus tours in person, so that might be an option if things get better. And Charlie and myself will be doing some traveling for recruitment, and there is the potential for you to join us for some of the local events if we're going to a college or university in the area and you're interested in talking face-to-face with some prospective students. That might be a task that we could add to your portfolio as well. But we will try to give you as much training as we can or as you want, and you'll always have us as a resource. So just nuts and bolts. This position, so I mentioned at the beginning, it is paid. It's one of the few paid opportunities for Lally. We pay $15 an hour, and I think you all had 10 hours a week to work with.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, you're not going to get rich doing this, but it might help at some of your living expenses. And also, I think, I started my job shortly before all of our ambassadors joined on, and it was, I don't know, it was a nice team. And I think especially during the pandemic, it was nice to have people to check in with. And, because nobody was meeting their classmates in person either. So it was a good way to get to know a few people and, create a nice little bond. So, all right, I'm going to shut the recording down now. And if anybody has questions that they'd like to ask in, on mic or on video, please feel free to do that. We would love to answer any questions you've got. So, all right.